Dominance theory came about many years ago by a gentleman who brought together a whole pack of dogs and really wolves, and he filmed them and researched them and found that they had this hierarchical dominance and they controlled the pack through it. But even he's basically acknowledged now that he manipulated the study inadvertently by the way in which he brought the dogs together, and that it doesn't actually cover as much as we thought it did. For a long period of time, and I was very much a dominance theorist, and now you've got your Cesar Millans and these sort of things, that we believe that, the dog urinated on the floor, it's trying to dominate you. Chances are it's probably not toilet trained. Okay, it just doesn't know to go outside to go to the toilet. It's not actually trying to dominate. When the dog nudges you for a pat, chances are it just wants a pat. It doesn't actually trying to control you. Now, there are times when that occurs, but it's very, very rare that the dog will actually show any hierarchical dominance to a human. Since I've moved away from dominance theory and stopped being the ogre to my dog and being confrontational with it, my relationships with my dogs have improved exponentially. That I actually end up now with a far, far better relationship with my dog. That we would have a lot of tough guys, trainers and that sort of stuff, and myself included, that the dog would growl at you over a bone and, you'd really get into, you're a bad dog or whatever. And then my wife started to do things where if the dog would be reactive over a bone, she'd be throwing it bacon. And I'm looking at this going, oh God, this is no good. But very soon, she's cuddling the dog while it's eating its bone and it's happy as a pig in mud. I walk up and it goes, oh, don't like you. Because it had learnt that I was an adversary over the bone and that we'd created this adversarial relationship by following through with dominance. But by actually teaching the behaviour that I'm not a threat to you over it, it stopped being a problem over the bone. It changed it. So when you're looking at a lot of things that have been described as dominance and hierarchical dominance, it's really just the fact that it's a defensive reaction, if anything, that the dog perceives under threat and it's aggressive to make you go away. It's not really dominance. But like I said, I still see this all the time. Anyone that's watched Cesar Millan will see dogs that he basically goes, the dog's dominating you, and he goes through this. All he does is really put dogs into aversion and create avoidance in them, that they just go, if I don't do it. And we did the same thing. So we fixed a huge amount of behavioural problems in dogs, that these dogs were, like, let's say, aggressive, and they ceased being aggressive because we were so hard on them. They just went, if I don't do anything, I don't get nothing happens. I just stand here, I won't do anything. And they were just very much... not robotic, it's not really the term, but very much they were just animals that existed. They didn't want to put a foot wrong. They didn't want to put a foot out of place, and they didn't seek our attention as much and all this sort of stuff. And the more we moved away from this, the better. What changed my ideas on it was I was in a panel where it was in the US, it was actually in New York City, and we're all lined up at a table and there was 6 trainers on there, and we were all discussing various aspects of what we believed, and there was a huge variance in it. And I was on the far left, and on the far right was this woman, and in between there was 5 of us who believed in dominance theory, and she had well and truly moved past that at the time. And we were discussing all different things that dogs were doing that were dominating and all the rest of it. And she just kept arguing about this is behaviour and that, and we were sort of blowing her off. And then she said in one thing, and I put it up here, the dog's not plotting for world domination. And that's why my reaction. We laughed. We thought, what an idiot. And then I was just sitting there, and someone had asked a question out of the audience to one of the trainers, and it was one of those questions that went on and on and on and on, that you go, and I don't know what the question is anymore because it had 45 different variables in it. And so I sort of switched off, and I was just thinking to myself, and I just went, you're right. That if you follow dominance theory through, what we're believing is that the dog is trying to challenge to dominate the world, to control everything around it, to do all these things. And you go, well, that's asinine, to think that a dog is actually going to go to try and become the leader of the free world. It just wants to control its environment. It wants to control what's around it. It might say, don't kick me off my bed. This is an important thing to me. But it's not truly dominating us. Domination really, it does occur on odd occasions. We will get dogs that are hierarchically driven towards people, and that they'll very quickly posture and do things. But it's very, very rare that in my time, like, the girls worked out, God, it'd be over a decade ago, that I'd trained over 4,000 dogs. And in that time, like I said, even a decade ago, I'd only probably seen 4 of these dogs. When I really thought about what was really going on, I'd only seen very, very few of these dogs. And since that, I've only seen probably 3 or 4 again. That I really go, this dog's really pushing me around. It's actively seeking confrontation and pushing me around and doing confrontational nuzzling and trying to control and stand up over me and do all these things. The rest of them, they're just trying to make you leave things alone or resource guard or whatever it is. And when I moved away from a hierarchical dominance position, I really found things improved between, like I said, me and my dogs and the dogs I teach. That by getting away from it, and like I said, I don't say it doesn't exist. Look at the dogs here, okay? It's clearly a hierarchical relationship we've got, that the dog's standing over the other one's submitting, going, ooh, you know, I'm in trouble here. And they will do that. Two of my shepherds, Arwen, who's, anyone that's been to class probably met Arwen. She's a very calm bitch, but she is that old matriarchal bitch, is probably the way to think of her. And every day when she meets Ash, she does that. She stands over and goes, and carries on at him. And poor Ashy just lies on the ground going, oh yeah, I'm not picking a fight here. And then they run off and play like happy ever after. And next day they meet up again and they do the exact same thing again. They're just controlling where the relationship stands in this case. And they will do that towards each other. And it does play some role, but it's nothing like what we actually thought it was when we were first following dominance theory. And we followed it full on. You know, dominance theory was everything for a time in dog training. It became the absolute catch cry and that sort of, and like I said, I heard it over everything. And it was just that one thing that just made me go, yeah, I don't think we're right. And as soon as I started to unravel it, it really unraveled pretty quickly in my mind that this was actually what my dogs were doing. And like, when I was doing dominance theory, I had a very, very strong dog, a dog called Nanook, and Nanook was pretty full on. He wasn't to be messed with, and he really did push me around, and I learnt a lot from the dog. But now when I think back to that dog and the things we did in that, I think, oh God, I should have done it so much differently. I would have done it. If I found that dog now, I don't really want to own it, but I would do it very differently. I would change what I'm doing. So very rare, like I was saying. Nowadays, I don't know, maybe one in every 30,000 dogs or something like that, I suppose, maybe. What I say to my customers and what we do is if you can tell your dog to go and get on a mat and it stays there until you tell it to get off, you're the dominant animal in the relationship. You don't need to worry about dominance anymore. And a lot of the things that we used to say about, oh, don't let them on the bed, don't let them on the furniture, don't let them do this, don't let them... My dogs do all that now. My dogs will happily get up on the bed under invitation, then they get off when I tell them to. They will get on the couch if I invite them up and lay down on me, and they'll be right up and down my whole length. I don't have any problems. They don't try to bite me. They don't be aggressive. I say get off, they get off. If I can control what they do, you just don't need to worry about it. So even if it does exist, if you want to say that the dog is becoming a dominant animal, if you can tell it what to do and it will follow those commands, you go past it. So by just teaching some basic obedience, you've alleviated the need for the idea anyway. Even if you go, I really think this does exist, and that's okay, you can do that. There's no problems. Plenty of people do. But if you just tell the dog, go outside, and it goes outside, you're the dominant animal. It doesn't do that to you. Well, I hope not. It doesn't growl at you until you walk out the door, I hope. But you control it. You're dominant, if you want to say. Yeah, more common in dog to dog, that's all that says. It's just that you'll get it. If you go to a dog park, you will see dogs standing over each other, posturing. The tail will be up and rigid. The hair will be up just on the top part of its back, which is more a hierarchical sign. Where the hair, or what we call polar erection, where the dog brings its hair up right down its back, that is more a defensive reaction, whereas you can just see there's a little tuft above the shoulder. It might be harder. I hope you guys can see it. That it's just a little bit of hair there. That's more of what we would determine to be a hierarchical dominant. And like I said, just not plotting for world domination. I just like that because it's pretty clear that that idea is foolhardy. That you think that the dog's dominating you, that it, like I said, it's not going to rise up and take over. It's not Planet of the Apes type stuff. And what I'm saying there is just see behaviour as behaviour. If you get a dog that's growling over its bed, rather than looking at it as dominance, think about what is the dog trying to achieve by growling at me on the bed. Well, it's trying to get me to move off the bed. So if, in this case, what I would be doing is, first and foremost, I'd have a lead on the dog. Any dog that comes to my house when it first moves in is on lead. It never off lead until all the rules I want to establish. But then I would pick that lead up and move it off the bed. I teach there's no success in growling at me from that point of view. Now, you need to be able to read a dog. You need to have some degree of confidence with it. But I move it off. But then when I put it back on the bed, once again, I'll go up with a handful of bacon. And I'll just start feeding it. And I'll get every person who walks in the house to feed it bacon when it's on the bed. Pretty soon, he doesn't care about people coming to the bed. He thinks it's fantastic. He just goes, come to the bed. Bring the gift, okay? Food, thankfully, is a great gift for us with dogs. And, you know, patting, praising, if the dog seeks that more, use that. But more often than not, if I can find something the dog really wants, and I've used sardines and a whole series of different things to get the dog really going, I want that, I can teach the dog, don't be concerned about me coming near the bed or the bone or whatever else it is. I desensitise the dog to the idea that I'm a threat over that object. And by doing so, we get past it. Like I said, instead of teaching the dog now that if you growl at me over your food bowl, I'm going to hurt you really and teach you bad things, what I do is I basically give it a bowl of bland rice. And then as it's eating it, sort of going, yeah, fantastic, thanks for that. And then I walk up and I start throwing bacon in or diced beef or something like that. Very soon, me approaching is a positive and it feels good about it and it doesn't feel the need to defend me over that anymore. And with a very short period of time, most dogs that are resource guarding their food, I can be standing right on top of them while they eat and patting them and rubbing them and they're wagging their tail at me like, this is fantastic. And like I've got a very strong male shepherd at the moment. He's a very powerful dog. Yet me, my wife, anyone, my nephews and that, he can be eating his food and they can just walk up and he'll just wag his tail and walk off and leave it and come and give him a lick on the face and a pat and they can walk back over and pat him because he perceives there's no threat over the food bowl. Now I'm not saying we teach that to every person that takes a greyhound, but what it shows is that if you don't create the idea that I'm going to take this object away and that I'm going to make a big ogre relationship between me and you with the food, it just desensitises and it goes, I don't care about you coming near the food bowl. If you're bringing things, like I said, if I said, right, there's $20 there, but I'm going to come up and give you 50 and 50 more and 50 more and 50 more, you don't care about me coming near your $20. You're just going to keep coming, keep going for it. So that's all really. So non-classical aggression. This is an extremely rare behaviour, but we just need to touch on it very, very quickly because I have seen it in a greyhound. I have seen a dog that has shown this behaviour in a greyhound and a couple of them over the journey. And what it means is that it doesn't paint the picture that defence does. You could see before, the picture that I put up in predation was the greyhound running. Okay, that dog's excited, it loves it, it's living for it, it's running and enjoying itself. In the defensive aspect, I had the dogs there that were very much, showing either aggression forward or being into avoidance and cowering away. This is a dog that will bite you and will show aggression to you, but be very comfortable doing it. It enjoys it. It wants to do it. In fighting dogs, they will call it gameness. A dog that truly loves to fight other dogs. All those old guys that used to fight them and all that stuff, they talk about gameness. In the greyhounds, the ones that I've seen like that have been either the ultra keen dogs, and once again, they will move on to other things, and once again, towards humans, that they actually enjoy it and they want to engage in that. More common in your breeds that have been bred for that, police, military, German Shepherds, Malinois, these sort of things, Dutch Shepherds, you'll see far more of it, but it just exists. And the reason I just want you to sort of be aware of it is that there's sometimes you're just going, well, the dog just tried to kill us, but it was completely comfortable doing it. It was wagging its tail at me and it wanted to eat me and chew me up. And that's where we talk about non-classical. The reason why we just use the term non-classical is it doesn't fit a classical model. It's Dr. Stuart Hilliard's definition or term that he uses, and I've just taken it from there. You'll use the term, that's why I got AKA there, active aggression or fight drive. You'll hear a lot of people use this, especially in service dogs or whatever. But once again, it can exist in any dog. I had a Saint Bernard that I walked into the backyard with the owner and they put it on a lead because they'd set it a problem. And same thing, it would have killed me if it had got hold of me. And it was wagging its tail, no hair up on its back. It loved every minute of it. It just went berserk. That it was basically friendly to the family and everybody else was just to be wiped out. Okay, so now St. Bernards are not normally a dog that we really worry too much about aggression levels. You get them the same as you will in every other dog. You get aggression in Labradors and Golden Retrievers and every other breed of dog and defensive reaction. But that dog really enjoyed the wanting to be aggressive. It loved it and it lived for it. And that's the difference, is when you get it, you'll get it the dog that really enjoys it. And so it's showing the body language of prey, if you're like, oh yeah, here we go. But the aggression of defence, it's actually going to bite you and it's going to like doing it. So that's what we're talking about there, just comfortable with predation. Aggression must be controlled. The only way you're going to rectify that dog at all is put huge amounts of control on it. That's all you're doing. You cannot fix that behaviour. You cannot shape it enough to make it go, I don't want to do that. It loves it. It is every morsel of its body that it wants to do it. And all you do is put high-level control on the dog so that you can basically control the behaviour if you want to fix it. It depends on what role the dog's playing, etc. For a police dog, that's the ultimate. But for every other person, generally speaking, it's a menace. Okay. Most of the time, by the time we find that, this behaviour, the dog's so far gone, it's a very, very long road back. There was a dog recently called Django, a Rottweiler, that I was called in to have a look at when he was 11 months old. And I walked up to the gate and he's gone ruff, ruff, ruff at the gate. And I thought, oh yeah, and when a lot of time when dogs will do this, when they fly the gate, I'll just bang the gate to make them show I'm not scared of that. I'm not reacting badly to it. If anything, I'll make it worse. Well, he went berserk. He was leaping to try and get over the fence to get at me. He would have had me at no issue at all. He's 11 months old. So 11-month-old, we equate a month to a year in dog terms. So at 11 months old, he's like an 11-year-old kid. That's an 11-year-old kid that walks up to an adult human and punches him right in the face. That's how strong that dog is. And all we've done with Django is shaped his behaviours away, done stuff, but controlled him. He walks the streets, if he goes for a walk, he's muzzled all the time. Because the same thing applies. You can't rely on what someone else is going to do, and they can do something to override what we've trained into the dog, because if they breach it and that sort of stuff. They learned very quickly they had him at a crossing, and a woman walked up beside him and he just looked at her and just gone to grab her. No sound, no barking, no growling, just tried to grab her. Now, it was only the length of the lead that stopped that reacting. That's what the dog did. Like I said, it's more common in those type of dogs. It's very rare in Rotties now, but you can see it. But more often in your police service dogs, military, that type of animal. But it exists in all dogs. I've seen it in very many breeds of dogs over the journey. Okay, but it's just aggression that the dog really, really enjoys.